morning and welcome to another exciting MoonBlink webinar. My name is Travis Hawthorne and I'm MoonBlink's marketing coordinator. And today we'll be going over opportunities in hospitality and guest networks. On the line we have David Grissom, ValuePoint's VP of Business Development, who will demonstrate how ValuePoint's products are a perfect fit for guest networks. MoonBlink has a very close relationship with ValuePoint and has been a distributor for them for the past 2 years. So we're very excited to do this webinar with them and help educate everyone in attendance on how ValuePoint can help your business. Before I pass it on to David, though, I do want to take a moment to go over who MoonBlink is. We are a value-added distributor for wireless and video surveillance equipment. And as I mentioned before, we work very closely with ValuePoint. We call ourselves a value-added distributor because our partner development team is extremely knowledgeable and experienced in wireless and video surveillance. We can assist our customers in product recommendations, system design. We can get help from our in-house engineers, and we can provide marketing and sales support. So instead of just taking orders, we can help you develop and grow your own business. In addition to being a ValuePoint distributor and a wireless distributor, we can provide many different video surveillance related equipment, including cameras from Axis and IQ Envision. And we've also recently launched a cloud-based video surveillance solution that our resellers can brand as their own VSaaS solution. So perhaps a hotel would want a few cameras around their perimeter in the parking lot and in the lobby. This could be a quick and inexpensive way to get that set up. Now I'm going to let David continue on with the remainder of the presentation. If anyone does have any questions, though, please do type them in the Q&A box on the bottom right of your screen, and we'll provide time at the end to go over those. So with that, David, I'll give you presenter privileges and let you begin.
Okay, thank you, Travis, for the introduction, and thank you to everyone who's attending. And if you're having any issues hearing me or I need to speak up, just feel free to type those in the Q&A chat window, and I'll do that. Just to get started here, again, the topic that we're discussing are hospitality and guest networks and really how to make the most out of them. And we're hoping to be gearing this presentation to some of you who are either running a hospitality guest network, or you're focusing on these solutions, or you're doing them as part of your overall solution, or you may be looking into this market as a new way to grow your business. We have a set of products and a couple key ones that deal directly with hospitality and guest networks. We'll get into those later after the overview. But just to kind of kick it off here, we're a product manufacturer, and our core products today that are dealing with hospitality and guest networks fitting in nicely with them are our gateway controller product, and it's our third model now of our 3500 series line, and it's the NC3560. And we also have a broadband aggregator product that sort of pairs nicely with it. And in many ways, these two products go together, especially when you have multiple ISP lines coming into your location. And so the gateway controller is providing the gateway functions and managing the users, and then the broadband aggregators managing the ISP lines. Just to kind of break down the different hospitality and guest networks that are out there, in terms of how they serve the users. Really the most popular one that we work with is free access. It's a pretty popular model for a lot of hospitality and guest networks. Free doesn't mean uncontrolled, of course. That's the important distinction, and that's what separates it from a lot of other networks out there that are within companies. Because if you have a hospitality network, guest network, you have a lot of people coming in and out. They have their own devices, their own setups. And you've got to serve everybody, get them on easily, but also have some security and management so that particular users can't sort of take over the network. And the first thing is obviously login page that people see or terms of use that they need to agree to. You may want a time limit. This is pretty popular. Again, even though it's free, it's time limited for their stay or for an hour, day, week, whatever you want to configure there. A key thing there is, again, controlling the users means, in our world, a simple way to do bandwidth control. There's a lot of ways to do bandwidth control out there. What we're providing is kind of a simple way to do it. It works for almost all the hospitality guest networks we come in contact with. So it's limiting each user to a reasonable bandwidth, and it's limiting their number of sessions. And that the sessions are really what's going to help, restrict the file sharers from sort of going crazy, and then also viruses that are out there. And we've got a lot of interesting stories and experiences about people that, before and after they put in a gateway, sort of what happened to the network and how it improved in terms of stopping the file sharers, stopping the file sharer warnings that people get. Even some of our solution providers have said they've been able to identify viruses on people's machines and then contact those guests to alert them of viruses. So there's a lot of value that's been added to these systems. And then we also log all the activity, and that's important. We'll get into that later in terms of, again, identifying things that are going on and who might be abusing the network. And then some of the other features we offer are just sort of serving up so everybody can get on auto IP, also called plug and play. That means that regardless of the device configuration, static IP or HTTP proxy, that user can sort of get on the network transparently. And then another big thing that comes up are VPN users, managing those people, giving them a public IP address and so forth, so they can traverse through the NAT and be accepted by their VPN server. And that comes up a lot, especially when you have people from the same organization at the site accessing the same VPN server. You need to give each one a unique public IP. We allow you to do that. So again, even though it's free access, there's a lot going on there behind the scenes to manage all the users. And the typical setup, as shown here, is you've got a gateway controller and then connect it out to the access points. And we support any access point. We do make our own. However, these days we're probably, in most cases, we're working with other access points, and pretty much we support any network infrastructure there as far as that goes. The other type of model you're going to see out there is a paid-for-use network. And the typical ways to set this up are either you could use a radius authentication, which we support very well, and we've supported it for years, so very mature. Lots of radius server options on the back end. We don't do that part of it, but we kind of work with customers who need a radius server. We have partners we work with that we've already tested with, and we know it works. So we can kind of provide some consulting and guidance on the radius server. What we're doing is the radius client part of it. The other thing you can do is set up a local account database and have prepaid cards, and sort of people can pay as they go. And we'll get into that later. It's very flexible with the local accounts and easy to set up all through the GUI. You can have different bandwidth plans. You can do upsell. We also have property management system integration, integrating with PMSs like Microsoft Fidelio, Microsoft Opera, as well as some new ones we're looking at as well, and systems that support the Micros interface. So in terms of bandwidth plans and upsell, what we're talking about there is you give a basic level of access for free, and then give the user the opportunity to pay more to get more. And a lot of that's being done now through the property management systems. It's still frankly an area that a lot in the hotel market, I think it's more kind of under investigation these days than being required. I mean, I think people are looking at it, they want to do it. There aren't a lot of brands that sort of require it right now. And in fact, a lot of hotel brands say you have to offer free internet. So if you're going to do a paid for use, it's got to be around the idea of an upsell. It couldn't be sort of charge everybody. So that's kind of what we see in the market. And then, final would be subscription-based. If you're an ISP, you're charging for, monthly access and so forth. And then this also kind of works more into the MDU market, where people, might get internet with their lease. They pay for it in the lease, and you're tracking them. And when their lease ends, their internet ends, that sort of thing. Or if they don't pay their lease, you cut them off, that type of thing. So that would be more of a subscription model, which again we support, and that can be done either through the local or the radius database. Okay, the other area that we get into a lot is visitors in an organization. It's a very different model, but again, a lot of the technology is the same. you might want to have a scenario where you're offering prepaid cards for visitors, a day pass, something like that, a week pass to get on the network. You're going to keep those users separate. Again, they're likely bringing in their own devices, and we know how IT in most organizations likes to have strict control over user devices. So, that type of scenario is, definitely want to control those users, again, with the same bandwidth and session control. Again, they may get a login page to agree to terms of use. So and you may be just segmenting them off, oftentimes segmenting them off with a separate VLAN from the rest of the organization. Hours of service, we support this, where you could, just sort of have particular hours that the gateway is going to accept connections, and then outside those hours, it won't accept any. And then obviously the security is key. So we look at these. These tend to be sort of all very different in terms of the network infrastructure when you're looking at providing it to an organization, large or small. And again, the opportunities are there if you're looking at professional services firms, people that deal with the public. A lot of government now we work with a lot of governments where they have a network for the staff, but they want to make it available to the public, or in courthouses, making it available to attorneys and so forth. So we're talked to a lot of cities, products used a lot there, where that's going on. Medical as well, hospitals, and so forth are definitely working on this and providing some sort of guest access, and probably want to do that with different equipment, different products, and not sort of let them on the internal network. Okay, and then the other opportunities kind of touched on a bit is MTU, MDU apartments. We have, some of our biggest users are focusing entirely on apartments, dorms, and that's their model. Go in and, sort of sell to people who are the property owner. The property owner becomes the ISP for the apartment, and the advantage there is you get internet day one. When you move in, you get your internet. And it works a lot. You can imagine in student environments, it works very well. Environments where there's a lot of turnover in terms of people coming in and out, short stays. The very first thing they want is internet, and so they get it. They get it from the apartment complex. Now the apartment needs to run that, and what's really important there is having the right bandwidth and the WAN speed. We have certain calculations we sort of go through to make sure people have the proper adequate WAN speed, because you're going to have typically there a much higher usage rate than you might find in a hotel, because you have people who are staying there and relying on internet really full time. So you may have a one-time login, authenticate one time, never have to do it again, captures their MAC address, that device is authenticated for good. That's pretty popular. And again, a lot of the bandwidth, session control, a lot of the things still apply. We find the connection logging is of real interest in these environments. People, they're going to have longer stay users, longer term users, so they really want to know if somebody's abusing the network. And we have a connection logging feature that basically looks at every user, every session. You can drill in and see who your abusive users are, what ports they're using, maybe identify a range of ports that are unusual, and go take action. Whatever action you want to take against these abusive users is up to you. We provide the tools, and in an apartment setting, it's even more important, because again, those users are long term, and if you've got a problem on the network, you really want to figure it out. The other thing is we allow you to stack NC 3560s to increase the number of users that are supported, and increase the throughput up to currently 130 megabits per second is what we'll go up to with 2. We're going to have a higher performance model coming out here in the near future that'll go higher. That's about a month away. So currently 130 meg still seems to be pretty good. If you have a 100 meg line coming in, we're going to work out well. We're not going to be the bottleneck there, if you will. But nevertheless, you still need to do bandwidth control, even if you have 100 meg. Got a lot of users, you can't have sort of unrestricted access there. Okay, and then talking about hotels, a lot of the hotels are going to be driven by their brand standards, and if you're in the hotel market today, you certainly already know about this. The different corporate brands, what do they require? So how how does that influence the property? There's a lot of them now that say you got to have 2 ISP lines minimum, and so that's a multiple WAN requirement with failover, and our BA 4000 does that very well. They have pretty strict standards on the login pages, and we'll show how the NC 3560 lets you host internal login pages. So there's really no limit there. We got a full web server on the product. You can load up login pages. If you're good at HTML, that's the limit, or the sky's the limit. If you're good at HTML, you can do pretty much anything you want there. You could have a single access code, dual access code, access codes that change every week, automatically. That can be set up. So again, to meet these, and we go through these hotel brand standards all the time to make sure we're compliant, and the product can be configured in a way that it's compliant for the standard. So predominantly, there are the standards, and there are also independent hotels out there that can sort of do whatever they want, but nevertheless, these things often still apply. You have there's a thing called DMCA, which is a lot of the hotels are looking at, and basically you need the connection logging there to show that the users are, what the users are doing to sort of remove the hotel from the liability. If there is illegal, what we're talking about here is if there's illegal file sharing going on, illegal downloads, then the hotel would want to identify, who's doing it. Is it a guest? Are they removed or staff? And certainly take action. Remove that offending computer from the network, and that's sort of what they need to do to comply with the ISP warnings. And then a lot of the hotels use the local user account. So basically set that up, and a lot of them are really sharing accounts these days, where you have unlimited users using one account. It might change every week, but nevertheless, it's a shared account, and our local database handles that real well. We've got we feel, one of the best and most flexible local databases out there. Okay, and then big thing these days really is supporting lots of devices. And the main thing that comes up here, usage has gone up a lot. The number of, you look at just things like the number of DHCP leases that are requested compared to a year or two ago. It goes up a lot. People may not even be connected, but they have devices they're walking around with that request DHCP leases. So you look at things like that. Look at your DHCP pool size, make sure you're not running out. Constantly maybe monitor networks you put in a couple years ago, to go back and review the configurations, upgrade the firmware, because we've been working on things, on DHCP specifically to deal with Apple devices, where maybe they have some special needs there in terms of fulfilling leases. And beyond that, then the things to look at with the different devices are obviously smartphones, iPhones, especially iPads have weaker Wi-Fi signals. This is more of on the Wi-Fi side, the infrastructure side, but where they may see they see the signal, but they can't get a DHCP lease, and it may be because they're not strong enough going back to the access point. Again, that's more of just reviewing the Wi-Fi infrastructure at systems that have been in to make sure they're dealing with the new devices. Beyond that, the big thing that comes up with different devices is login page. So again, a big thing there would be not having a login page that's a pop-up, because if it is, it can be blocked. So we've had cases where it was just as simple as that. People would report that the apples can't get on, and then we go in and we review the configuration of the gateway, and it's sure enough it has a pop-up login page, and it's being blocked by the client. So we just asked the solution provider to change it to a login page that's not a pop-up, and then it works. And it's been usually as simple as that on the gateway. That's been probably the biggest issue, specifically on the gateway, has been the DHCP lease is going up, the overall usage going up, obviously, and then just making sure you've got a login page that's not going to be blocked. And I think that's about it. Occasionally, we'll look at people's internal portal page, and we can test and make sure it's compatible with all the different browsers out there, Safari, Firefox, what have you, and just, that's the other thing that comes up is just the internal portal. If you are using your own internal portal page, just making sure it's compatible. But that turns out to be an HTML thing there. Okay, and then this is just a sample of a branded login page for the Holiday Inn Express. Probably a lot of you already have known or see this. This particular one would, for terms of use and a single field access code down here. And this is using what we call our internal portal feature on the gateway. And then big things to think about these days are bandwidth. Definitely bandwidth needs have gone up. They've doubled, they've tripled. Some of the properties get this, some don't, I guess, for whatever reason, don't understand. You've got a lot of users on, 100 users on, and squeezing them through a 10 meg pipe, might be challenging. To make everybody happy. So we have a lot of discussions about this, and it just, at the end of the day, comes down to how much is coming in, the concurrent users, and then we've got a formula we recommend. Take the WAN speed, number of users, sort of divide it out, double it. Say that's what you want to give each user, currently. And does that number work, or do you maybe look at bringing more WAN bandwidth into the property, maybe add a second line, use our broadband aggregator, that kind of thing. So I think, with this previous slide, all the different devices, they've just raised the bandwidth needs and the expectations of guests. And, it can be very challenging in an environment where it's free, but you still need to make everybody happy. I think that's just the world we live in hospitality and guest networking. So that's the challenge. The opportunity is the smart solution providers are sort of able to do it better and put in successful networks that people are happy with. And the ones that aren't so smart or aren't doing it the right way, it's not going to happen. So I think it gives you an opportunity, if you're in this market, to sort of be a cut above, everybody else. Okay, in terms of providing more bandwidth, again, in the organization, it's important as well, getting back to that. So again, we've got the BA4000, it's got network availability, automatic failover, and so forth. And sometimes the way people will use our broadband aggregators, they'll tie the staff network sort of directly into it. So those users don't even get authenticated. So the enterprise users just sort of go straight out, and then all the guest users will sort of tie into the 3560, and then it will authenticate, and then it'll connect to the BA4000. So we see that a lot as a common way to do that. Okay, well, just talking about the next topic, big topic. This is a biggie: controlling and stopping file shares. Can you stop them, or maybe you just better way to do is control them in a way that they don't take over the network, or one particular one doesn't take over. So the approach we've taken some very simple, cost-effective approaches, simple to set up, don't require sort of a full IT staff and training to run our boxes, which is the market that we deal in. So in terms of what we're doing here, a couple things. On our broadband aggregator, we have rules you can set up, QoS rules. So we've got it set up as one button. You click on one button, and we configure all these rules automatically. It basically takes the common peer-to-peer ports, the traffic, and puts them into a low-priority pool. And a couple of people told us that's a good way to do it. So rather than blocking it, and then the P2P application just goes and finds another port, it doesn't really do you any good. We just sort of hamper it, control it, put it in a low-priority pool. So what happens is the peer-to-peer can't sort of take over all the bandwidth, and in fact, they may just time out. And we found in practice that's pretty effective. That's the way we handle it there. And then we also do on the gateway in C3560, we do session limiting, also a pretty effective way to handle it. P2P applications will open up hundreds or thousands of sessions, and if you can limit them to 50 or 100 typical values, then you're going to hamper, again, limit that P2P users, but you won't really affect other web browsing applications. So that's a pretty simple thing to do. the gateway, and then obviously the bandwidth limit. So we've looked at a lot of typical networks. When we look at the reports, we see 10 to 20% of the users are causing the problems. Is what it sort of boils down to. So make the network work for 90% of the users, and then not for the 10%. I guess is the approach there. So that's basically, again, limiting the file sharers, limit the bandwidth, and so the 10% of the users don't sort of hog it all. And we've got a global bandwidth limit and a per user bandwidth limit you can set there. Okay, and then finally there is port blocking. Don't know how effective it is these days though, because a lot of P2P just sort of switches around and uses port 80 or looks for open ports, but you can block specific ports on the NC3560 and the BA4000. Okay, and then talking about now what do you do to sort of track people? We have added a lot in terms of the user reporting. We've got, as I mentioned before, connection logging, where every user, every session is tracked by MAC and IP address and by destination IP, and this is what you can use to go ahead and if you do get an ISP warning about illegal download. A lot of our customers, before putting in the 3560, got them. We even had a good story we wrote with one of our customers about, several hotels getting warnings. They put in 3560s. The warning stopped, after they set up the bandwidth control, the session control. So that was a good story. We like to hear that. And if you do get a warning, the next thing you want to do is track back and see who the user is and who the MAC address and IP address is. And if you have unique user accounts, you can track it back to user. If everybody's sharing a user account, well, you'll at least be able to track it to the MAC address and ban that machine from the network. And then you've sort of done your job, as a network provider. Okay, and then so that's the sort of the connection logging on the previous slide. What we have now, and I'll get into this, we've got a report, and we've extended it out to a report portal where you can look at overall number of users, number of logins, transmitted and received bytes. Just sort of look at traffic patterns on your network, see if the bandwidth is growing over time, monthly. Present that to, if you're the solution provider, you present that to the property owner and show them how bandwidth has grown, from where it was a year ago. That could be very helpful in planning the bandwidth that's needed. You can look at particular users and, perhaps problem users that are having a lot of upload, maybe not a lot of download, a lot of upload. That would definitely indicate a potential problem user there. You can just use it in a lot of ways here. Basically, we're providing the reports, and we're definitely on this one. We're always looking for feedback from people that are using our product. How can we make the report more user? Sort of give you the killer report that you need to identify your abusive users, and give it in a way that's sort of easy to monitor, easy to see. And I'll show that in a moment here. And then those reports are stored. A limited amount is stored in the gateway. I think you can store up to 2 months in the gateway. Beyond that, you'll need to ship it up to a server. You can send it to a TFTP server. We also host for people. We host a report portal for people, and we will also host the logs themselves. So that's where you get into the long-term storage. Okay, well, let me go ahead and show you real quick here. Okay, I think if everybody can see this. If you can't see it, just let Travis know. He can communicate that. But you should see at this point now the NC3560 GUI. Okay, and it's pretty easy to use if you've used it already. You know all about this. Basically status and so forth. Let me just show you some key things here. It's all driven by obviously from a browser. We were talking a little bit earlier about the report, and this is basically daily, weekly, monthly report. This is all stored in the device. You see, you get 2 months in the device. Beyond that, and I'll show you how our report portal will let you go, basically as much as you want. But in the device, you're getting 2 months. You're getting host users. This is our own internal network here. Transmit, receive bytes total, and you can drill in. You can drill in on users. Now, if we look at some of the key features that we kind of talked about earlier that sort of separate us from the pack, you've got a key one here is auto IP, also known as plug and play. That is what virtually every hotel requires that now. You don't even get considered if you don't have it. To basically say, are you going to support different devices? You can isolate them from each other as well with auto LAN isolation. So that's a key feature that you just got to have in the product. If you look at other key features, we're talking about the bandwidth limits. Here's global bandwidth limit. I can disable. I mean, you probably would never want to disable that. We ship it at the default is enabled, and then the only reason you might disable it is for testing purposes if you want to run speed tests or whatever on your network. But in normal practice, you enable it. You have a download and an upload limit per subscriber. You can put in whatever you want there, and that would sort of limit. That'd be the simplest scenario, just sort of limit everybody to the same limit, and pretty common. Say probably most of the networks we see are set up this way. Everybody gets the same. And so that's bandwidth limits. We have session limits below where you can enable that and set a maximum concurrent sessions. Again, the point there is to limit the file sharers from taking over the network. Okay, let's take a look real quick here at security. We have lots of different ways to go. We mentioned radius server. We have local, pretty popular. We've got one for the Hampton here, terms of service, where you just agree to the terms of service. It tracks that agreement, but there'd be no, in that scenario, there'd be no user accounts, and that's pretty popular. We have PMS-based authentication, where you have, basically you're getting your account based on your name and your room number, and it's enabled by the front desk, that type of thing. So that's available. And then just real quick, I can just sort of show you. If you're running the internal database, you can have lots of accounts here. You can enter them or import them from Excel, or you can automatically generate them. We've got a random number generator as well. And then this is where you could set, say, different subscriber bandwidth limits per subscriber. If you want a scenario where you had different tiers of subscriber bandwidth limits, you do it here. Okay, set that there. Okay, so moving right along, we've got, want to show you the customization. This is kind of a key one, a pretty cool one where we think we're giving you a lot of options here. As I mentioned earlier, don't go with the pop-up, not anymore. I think that was something people did maybe 5 years ago, but don't go with the pop-up these days because going to cause too many problems with smartphones. So if you're looking for the easiest login page, the default here is kind of nice because it's got just a little template that you can sort of key into with your banner, your message, your background color, and so forth. Easy to set up. It's not a pop-up, so it's going to work with all the devices. And then a really popular one is internal portal. If you go with internal portal, you can upload your pages and make them look however you like. Again, single or dual field access code, anything you want to do. There's just so many things you can do with the internal portal page, and especially if you're good with designing web pages. And then in terms of where those pages are stored, you can see they're all stored here, and you can load a lot of image files and so forth. You're just basically going to upload create your files and go ahead and upload them here. So that's as easy as that. And then lots of other things, message customization, advertisement, sort of the sky's the limit there, where they get redirected to after the login, all that can be done. Okay, looking at management here real quick. We support SNMP. We've got AP monitoring over here where you can put in your APs, syslog, remote and local. The report can be configured. And then this one is the connection logging. It's talking about tracking every single session and from every user and then uploading that to a TFTP server. and we support that, and that's really good for tracking the file sharers and responding to the illegal file sharing warnings. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it on the, those are the highlights. Lots of other things on the NC 3560. Those are the highlights of it. If I look at, let me log in here real quick to our report portal. And this is available if some of you afterwards, if you want to look at this more. This is a site we have up available to look at. Basically what we're doing now is if you take the report that was stored in the NC 3560 and move it up a level, where now I can look at all my accounts. You see over here on the left, I have 50-odd account locations here. This would be a gateway at every location, right, or gateways at every location in NC 3560. So I have them all named over here. And let's go look at Alexandria, and let's look at the monthly report for Alexandria. And this is showing me for the last year, now every month, how many hosts, how many users, the logins, the transmit, receive bytes, the total. So I can look at traffic patterns, what's going on. I can drill into a particular month here, look at a particular user, and see also, rank them. So let's say I want to rank by, upload. Who's doing the most upload on my network? There you go, right there. There's my ranking. Looks like Rita did an answer. So it's all ranked here. I can look at my top uploaders, my top downloaders. Top uploaders might be really handy in identifying file sharers or spammers or anybody on your network that might be doing some things you don't want them to do, so abusive things, or they have a virus on their machine and they don't know it, generating a lot of upload. That's something you'd probably want to look at there. Then I can go in and drill on any particular user and basically show the connection. This basically imports the connection log that we were talking about earlier into the report log. So for this user, Rita, I'm looking at every session they open, the time, source, destination IP. And what we're going to do, the first question we got is the first version that we rolled out is show us the domains as well. So obviously, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the destination IP and convert that into a domain. So not only do you see the IP, you see the domains they're hitting, and you might want to see that. You might want to see the top 10 domains, top 10 websites. Could be useful information for you, especially if they're domains maybe you don't want them going to. You'll have that information, and then the port activity, looking at destination ports, source ports. So this is basically what the report log is going to do. We're going to be adding graphs and charts to this very soon. So this is all visually displayed as well, and you can export it to a CSV. So that's kind of quick tour of the report log. Okay. So let me get back to the presentation, and now just to kind of wrap up here the presentation before we go to the question and answer portion is, again, to recap, we make a very solid gateway. It's been in production for several years. The latest model is the 3560. Lots of different releases. We typically do about 3 to 4 releases a year, and combination of fixes, reliability improvements, new features, and so we got a lot of features, and they've been built primarily for the visitor-based networks, guest networks. Nevertheless, still a good price. We haven't raised the price through the years. You get everything with it. There's no required maintenance fee or annual maintenance fee. I know some of the other vendors do that, or one where they'll shut off the unit if you don't pay the maintenance fee. We don't do that. We let you. That's optional. Typically, if you're an active customer of ours, you never have to pay for updates or support. So that's the way most of our users are running, where they get the upgrades for free, and then it's priced right. It's about half. Just the upfront price is about half what you find for similarly featured products. And again, one time pay for it. You don't have to pay the annual fees after that. Okay, then in terms of the BA4000 broadband aggregator, pretty much the same story. We have a fully featured product, 200 megabit throughput, which we feel is very, very good in the industry at a price that's about half that of the similar products. So that's sort of where we've positioned our products, is give you the features you need. Don't really compromise on that, but price it affordably, and we do that. We feel with both these products. Okay, and I think that's let's see. I think we just have a summary slide. Yeah, if you want to contact either Moonblink or ValuePoint Networks after the presentation, there's the contact information. And I think this webinar is going to be available as a recorded presentation. I do believe it's all recorded, so we'll have a link to it later as well as the slides. If you just want the slides, we can make those available. And I think that's about it for the presentation. We've allowed ourselves here a good 20 minutes for Q&A, which is always nice. So I guess fire away, and Travis, you're going to read the questions, right? And
yes,
I'll try to do my best on the answers.
Okay. So please submit any questions you have in the Q&A box on the bottom right. We already have a few. Had some from earlier in the presentation, David. One asked, how many WAN lines does the BA4000 support?
Yeah, so BA4000 is currently up to 3 WAN lines plus a fourth 3G, 4G. So it'd give you a total of 4. So it has three of the WANs are Ethernet. Just run them into whatever you want, Ethernet cable, DSL, what have you. And then the fourth one's 3G, 4G. That's the current BA4000. We are going to have a model, again, talking about future models, we are going to have a model coming out with more, and that'll be out before the end of the year.
Okay. Another question is, how many concurrent sessions can the 3560 support?
Oh, well, let's see. Concurrent sessions. I'm not sure I know the answer to that one. The total concurrent sessions. We've probably tested it. It's somewhere along the line. I mean, I can tell you about. I can probably get back to whoever asked that question. I have to go check with engineering. But in terms of the concurrency, the thing we've sort of rated or advised in the past is more about concurrent users, and we do recommend or rate the 3560 at about 200 concurrent users, not to exceed that. It's not a license limit or anything like that. It's just more of a performance rating. So I can get back to whoever in terms of the number of concurrent sessions. I'll have to check on that one. But concurrent users, if that's what you're looking for, we typically say about 200 on that, and then 65 megabit throughput for the device. But can you take a note of Travis, who asked that question? And I'm sure we've tested it in our lab. I just need to get the answer to that.
Yeah, I've made a note here to follow up on that one question.
Okay.
That individual also had another question about, can you remotely access the controller?
Oh, can you remotely access?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's remotely accessible. There's a couple things to talk about there as well. That's a good question. So if you're accessing it on a static public IP, no problem. You just hit that public IP, and then it's protected. Username, login. You can also restrict the access to an IP address if you want to restrict that access from the source IP. You can do that, or put in a range. If you have a NOC or something like that you want to limit the remote access to a range of IPs that are hitting it. And then we also support dynamic DNS. So if you're on a DHCP line, WAN line, you can set up dynamic DNS. And if you're familiar with that, that means you could always hit it through the URL, and even as the IP updates, you can still get to the unit. So hopefully that answered that question.
Okay. I'm skipping a couple here, but this one is kind of relevant. It asks, when you say users, are you referring to devices?
That's just users. Yeah, we don't count devices. So in terms of the number of APs or switches out there, there's really no limit to that. It just comes down to we just have a perform because it is at the end of the day kind of how many sessions can be pushed through there, and we've tested up to 200. We feel like 200 concurrent user sessions is a pretty good number. It's not a hard limit. It's more of a recommended, sort of how fast can the car go, kind of a question. So that's what we say. And if you've got more, if you hit that peak, rarely, it wouldn't be too much of a problem. If you had that many users on a lot, on a pretty regular basis, we'd advise that you have 2 gateways and do load balancing, and then increase that number to 400. So that's what we'd recommend. And at the end of the day, it also depends on how much bandwidth you have coming in, which may be your limiting factor beyond whatever the gateway's doing. What kind of bandwidth do you have available at the site? So you kind of have to look at the big picture there. Yep.
Okay. I have a question about the bandwidth graphs. Do you have any insight on how best to interpret those graphs?
The bandwidth graphs?
Yes.
Well, we could show it to you. Let me. Not really sure if the question was about. Let's see here. If the question was about the report portal or this bandwidth, we have this bandwidth graph. I'm assuming that's what the question's about. And we're happy to go through this. It's if this question is from a current user or something like that, we could probably take it after the meeting as well. But basically, what you're getting in this bandwidth graph is the last 60 minutes on the 3560. There's also a bandwidth graph on the 4000 as well. I'm just showing the 3560 for this presentation, and it's last 60 minutes. You've got last 24 hours, that kind of a thing. So I'm not sure what the question was beyond that. I think it's pretty self-explanatory here. It's showing you your minimum, your average, your max to see if you're peaking out. If you hit your peak over the last 60 minutes or last 24 hours. This is useful to show how many times you're hitting your peak. For example, that's the main use of this graph. If you're looking more for long-term bandwidth usage, then you're looking more at the at the report portal here, and for example, looking at these numbers right here. But if the question is about the bandwidth graph, yeah, that's it right there. And we could take any other questions offline. You LAN and WAN, so forth. Okay, so hopefully that answered that question. Next question.
Yeah, could you return back?
Okay.
Stop sharing the desktop so we can go back.
Yeah, so you can see the question.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense.
And then what is the latest firmware release for the BA4000 and the 3560?
The latest release?
Yes.
Version? Okay. On the 3560, I believe it's version 16 we have on that. Yes. And then we could go to the GUI and check that. Let me just do it without showing my screen here. Yeah, version 16, and then let me just real quick on the 4000. I'm going to go in real quick here, again, without showing my screen. Looks like we're on version 16 as well on the 4000. So they're both version 16 currently. Different versions, different products. They just happen to share the same number at this point. So that's good. And then okay.
Okay. Can the 3560s be stacked?
Be stacked, yes. Yes, absolutely. You can stack 2 of them, and then that doubles your throughput to 130 megabits. And they do load, the 2 units will load balance.
Okay. What would you say is the average number of devices per guest?
Oh, wow. Average number of devices per guest is growing, that's for sure. Boy, based on probably probably average now is per guest 2. I mean, some guests are going to have more, but average. I haven't done a study, frankly. That's just literally right off the top of my head. Thinking a guest is going to have pretty much everybody has a smartphone now. And do they have a laptop? Yes, many do. And then some guests are going to have 3 or 4. So average it all out, my guess is 2. But you guys may know better, have a better answer than I would on that. Those of you in the market and going out to the sites. But yeah, that's a good guess. And then you count up all those devices that are requesting DHCP leases, and as I said, whether they're even logging on or not, it definitely means the network becomes more critical.
Does the 3560 support CALEA compliance?
CALEA, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We do. And that's a good question. That's about the logging, because when you get into CALEA, it's mainly about the connection logging. And when we build our connection logging feature, we've made sure that we are CALEA compliant. Yes.
Okay. Is there demos that customers can use to test out these products?
Well, there is. The best way to go on a demo, if you've not used the product before, and anybody can contact us after the presentation, we have a unit up. And I can give you the public IP of it, of 3560BA4000, and you can log in and look at the GUI. So we do that pretty often, just make available a public IP. And you can get in and look at the report portal through a public IP. So all of these things are sort of demoable or viewable at that level. And then if you're looking to get the product, you could get it from Moonblink, or you get it, talk to us about it. We don't really have kind of a demo pool, but we do offer a 30-day return policy. So that's, you buy it, you need to buy the unit, and then you can return it, within 30 days for full refunds. That's been working out great for people that want to look at it for the first time, kind of a thing.
Okay. Will the NC3560 handle a 200-room hotel?
Absolutely. Either 1 or 2, depending on the usage level at that hotel. You'd probably look at 200 rooms. It all comes down to the number of users. These days, and again, this is a number that some of you may know better than we do. A 200-room hotel, how many concurrent users would you expect there? Depends on the hotel, but that ratio, that usage might be up to like 50% now, whereas it was probably more like, just a few years ago, it was probably more like 25%. It's probably up to 50, maybe even 60%. So that would be for that size hotel. If it's full occupancy, 100 concurrent users, 13560 will do fine. Two 3560s would be plenty for that size hotel. Absolutely. I don't see any issues or anything there.
Okay. Yeah, I also have a comment here. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting it correctly, but it says about 80% of your room count will be online at one time.
Okay, is that right? Well, that's that number's really gone up. Wow.
If I'm interpreting that comment correctly.
Yeah, so that means 200-room hotel. Again, it's going to depend a lot on the property and the occupancy rate and so forth. But so 200-room hotel, 160 users. We can handle that with 1 or 2. In a case like that, we might recommend 2 gateways to do load balancing with that many users.
Okay. Next question is, when is the report portal available, and what will pricing be like?
Okay, great question. It is going to be available soon, as in we're rolling it out here within 30 days. And whoever, I didn't see who asked that question again. Contact us after the meeting. We're not quoting any pricing in this presentation. That's just sort of all going to happen after after the meeting. We can quote you the pricing. But in terms of availability for the report portal, we are looking at within 30 days. And if you're interested now, definitely contact us. We can quote you, and then give you the information to get in and view it, and answer any questions you have.
Okay. Next question is, how do you handle IP conflicts? For example, 2 users on the same IP.
Okay, 2 users on the same IP. Well, I guess if the question's about 2 static, I'm not really sure if I understand exactly the question, but in terms of the DHCP, there shouldn't be an IP address conflict, with DHCP. But if you're talking about, I guess, a static IP conflicting or something like that, we have, I think the auto IP is going to handle that, as far as I know. And then we do have this aggressive DHCP conflict detection that some people like to enable, although you should be careful when you enable that feature, definitely. But that is available for things like conflicts. But yeah, I guess on that one, DHCP conflicts don't really come up when you have a properly designed DHCP server, and we don't have any issues with that. Of course, if you get another DHCP server on the network, that does happen, then you're going to have issues. But we have ways to handle that. We can take that one after the meeting. Okay.
Okay. And then this one is asking, you guys don't have any user licenses or anything, and this one's asking about the cost per user. So that's not really applicable, right?
There's no cost per user. We don't license that way.
Okay. Give it a few more seconds if there's any last-minute questions, but that's all the questions I have right now.
Yep.
Well, I have a question here. What happens if we have 2 APs with the same static IPs by accident?
What happens? Well, I would think you'd have a problem with that scenario. I would think you'd want to resolve that. Probably during troubleshooting, you can identify it. Our AP monitoring is probably going to pick that up. It's going to show a problem with that IP address. If you have all your APs in the monitoring table, I think it's going to pick up a problem like that. But yeah, if it happens, you'll probably you'll get very unusual results in your AP monitoring table, and then you want to fix the problem. Yep. So our gateway, it doesn't control APs in the sense that it's not like an AP controller. Some of the products out there. So not to be confused with that type of a device where it's controlling APs. We're controlling users. So, in terms of the APs, if you go with a thin client AP or wireless controller, that's fine. That'll work with our product. But we're not gonna sort of assign IP addresses to APs or anything like that. Our gateway doesn't do that. So hopefully that clarifies that question.
Okay. There's doesn't seem to be any further questions. Just want to remind everybody that if you have any inquiries or anything, that you can reach out to us at Moonblink. I'll be sending out a follow-up email by tomorrow afternoon. That'll have the slides and a link to the recording, and invite you to reply to that email if you have any further information you'd like to get. Anything you'd like to say as we wrap this up, David?
I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending, and we hope that you found this informational and gave you the information you needed. And again, just feel free to contact us at the email sales@valuepointnet.com, or come to our website and check out anything. And definitely feel free to contact us and ask any question at all. We'll be happy to answer.